Hello everyone, good day. Welcome to this online NPTEL Field Structural Geology course. We are beginning a new week, that is the second week, and as I said in the previous week that we will be learning mostly some structural elements that we see in the field in this week. To start with, the first topic rather would be on primary structures. And what we have done, we have divided this entire primary structure series in two lectures. So, in lecture 5 and in lecture 6, we will learn primary sedimentary structures, and we will one after another in these two lectures we will see, interpret and try to understand different primary sedimentary structures, including bedding planes, cross beddings, then overturned cross beddings, ripples, their migration processes and so on. And also we will learn about convolutes. While we are learning all these things, we will also talk about how to understand Younging directions, how to interpret the paleocurrent directions from these primary sedimentary structures. We will also talk about load balls, and finally we will conclude these two lectures with fish and pillar structures that we observed in one of the study areas, that is Dhalmunghar airstrip. We are looking at this rock quartzite in this exposure at Chitrakoot Hillock in Harindungri village. What we see here, that we see a section of rocks and we see some lines, okay. And if we try to understand that what are these lines, then two possibilities are there. So, clearly we can think that they could be a planar fabric or a linear fabric. Now, of course, on this surface they are linear, but if we see that these surfaces, if we trace and we go to the parallel, we see a surface here exposed. So, these lines are basically traces of some planes. Now, the question is, what are these planes? Are these S0, that means primary bedding surfaces, or they are S1, S2 or S3 or so on. Now, to understand this, as we know from our theory that to understand S0, it is important that we look for some typical features. One of them is compositional variation, then thickness of the layers and so on. And at the same time, if we can see some sedimentary features. Now, luckily this exposure exhibits almost all of them. So, we see compositional variation here essentially because we see some color bands. These are essentially because of some variation of mineralogy across this layer. Thickness, yes, we see there are some very thin layers like this. This is even thinner, then little thicker, then even thinner, and then more or less a similar composition is following till that, and then we have again a very thin deposition and so on. So, slowly we are convincing ourselves that these are the traces of the bedding plants. More than that, if we look at particularly at this section, what we see here, that these layers, the way they are trending, this one is slightly off from that. So, here the trend is like that, and here the trend is like this. Now, we know that unless there are some other disturbances, the sedimentary depositions should happen along a horizontal plane, and therefore, their cross sections should be along a particular line and they should be parallel to each other. This is not because we are looking at a very special sedimentary structure, and that is known as cross bedding. So, we see that this particular packet of layers are confined along two parallel layers, and in between we have these inclined layers. We also see that at this side these layers are sort of merging with this bottom boundary asymptotically, and at the top part we see here they are getting truncated, and that clearly tells you that this is what we know from our theory class of sedimentology. This is a cross bedding, and that clearly tells you that we are looking at traces of the bedding planes here. On the top of that, we also can tell that this is the Younging direction of this sedimentary sequence. I am walking along the northeastern side of this thickest quartz band, that quartzite band to be very specific. I am walking actually along the bedding planes, and as you can see that these are the bedding planes exposed, and on this surface you can see the traces of the bedding planes, and now you see that they are thicker. Sometimes for example, if I come here, they are little thinner, and this area particularly exposes a few other features as well. We have seen a few cross beddings. For example, here we see a very distinct cross bedding and almost a textbook like feature here. You can see here that these two are the regional trend of the bedding planes, or they are actually the actual bedding plane, and along this you can see the traces of the cross beddings, and you see this side it is getting truncated, and then if you follow it in this side they are asymptotic at the bottom. So, this is the Younging direction from this side to this side. So, along with giving the Younging direction, the cross beddings also provide you another very important information, that is the paleocurrent direction, which I will explain on the board. We will now see that how cross beddings do develop and in which way they can help us in interpreting geological structures. So, cross bedding is essentially sedimentary features. So, you can imagine that sedimentary beds are being deposited this way, one above another, like this, with different compositions and so on. And if it happens that you have some little variations, that the bed is not horizontal, in the sense that river or streaming water has covered some place, then if I zoom this area, so river is flowing in this direction, so sediments are being deposited in this form. So, it slowly covers this area. And levels up to make it horizontal. So, you can see that at this side these are getting asymptotic, and then with further flow of the river it just truncates this surface and then deposits further bedding planes over it. So, in the sequence, this area appear like this, where these are the initial horizontal planes, and in between you have the cross bedding. So, clearly this asymptotic bottom and truncated top are the clues to provide that this is how the sedimentary deposit had happened. That means this is the Younging direction. Further to this, looking at this, which way these cross beddings are sloping, they also give you the paleo flow direction or paleo current direction. So, if we now focus on this particular domain here in this place, we see that these are the two confined bedding planes, which are actually the regional trends, and then in between we have, let me mark one, the traces of the cross bedding. Let me mark another one. So, as you can see that here these are asymptotic, like they are merging very gently with the bottom plane, but here it is suddenly cropped. So, we call this as you can see here, and asymptotic bottom, and these are the signatures of a cross bedding, and they give you two major information. One, the sedimentary succession direction, that means the Younging direction of the stratigraphy, and paleo current direction of the sediments. So, here looking at one exposed cross bedding, actually you see the cross bedding in 3 dimensions. So, just to give you the idea, this is the horizontal surface, as you can see the pen is lying here on this surface, and this is a subvertical surface, as you can see the pen is standing here. Now, the regional bedding trend is this. So, this is how the bedding is going on, and here you see some curved surfaces, all right, and these are cross bedding surfaces, and on the top if you come, you will see that not of this, but again you see the traces of the cross bedding on the cross section, but here you see them exposed. So, it is very important that if you know that in your area where you are studying you have cross beddings, then while taking the measurements, particularly the orientation of the bedding plane, you make sure twice, thrice that you are not measuring the cross beddings. You are measuring actually the original depositional surface, though the bedding cross bedding surfaces are also depositional surfaces. And if you see overturned cross bedding, so you will see in some places sometimes people do mistake of thinking that these are folds, but they are not folds, they are overturned cross beddings, and we will see them soon. Here we are again in this third quartzite band, and we see again a very interesting sedimentary structure that we have been seeing throughout this area, but here I will show you something new. So, what is seen here, you can see that this is the general trend of the bedding plane here and here. So, you see the traces here like this, and you can see that you have the standard cross stratification or cross bedding which are going here like that, with the bounding surface going this way. Here in this particular horizon, in this particular packet, what we see that if we follow the asymptotic bottom, we see it is going like this, which is very, very interesting, that we did not see before. It is going like that, and if I have to draw it here, you can follow the traces. It is going like that. Now, these are something that we did not see before. These are known as overturned cross stratification. So, they formed like normal cross stratification and they are full of water. So, if the speed of the water increases, stream increases, then one possibility is that it drags the top part and makes it turned, and then it can form in this form, and we say them overturned cross stratification. Another possibility of formation of the overturned cross stratification is that you have the normal stratification like this, and somehow if you have a compression along this direction, then this can get folded, which is very rare, but experimentally it can be shown that you also can form this kind of stratification. However, the first explanation that I gave is a well accepted and majorly considered reason for overturned cross stratification. Nevertheless, these overturned cross stratifications appear like a fold. I will show you at some places here in this Harindungri village, the cross section of this overturned cross stratification, they appear exactly like buckle folds, but there are signatures by which you can differentiate that these are overturned cross stratification, not buckle folds. And needless to mention, even in this case, the younging direction is towards this side, and that is being maintained all over the region. Let us focus on this particular area. What we see here? We see the traces of S0 going like this way, and we see that inside the S0, for example, this is one S0 trace, we see some little marks here. So, in the first look, it appears like this is a foliation trace, but this is not. This is known as ripple migration. So, let me show you how does it happen. This is one of the very important sedimentary structures that we see in the field. What is important, as I always tell you or advise you, that if you see this kind of things, it is better if you start sketching what you are seeing. So, this is exactly what I am trying to do here. So, if I look at this way, more or less, it does not have to be exactly the way it is, but you can so this two black things I can mark like this here, and then another one is like this, something like that. They are going like this, just to mark, and the coin is somewhere here. Now, inside this we see that these are the layers that we are talking about, these fine layers which are moving like this, and also in this side. Also you have it here in different alternate black and white layers. Now, this I show you, it tells you two very important things. One, again it tells you this is the Younging direction, and this also tells you that this is the paleocurrent direction. So, how does it happen that you have a ripple like that? For example, it has to be an asymmetric ripple. For example, in this case I can consider this one as an asymmetric ripple, right? But in this case it is opposite. So, in general, let me draw it in a separate page. So, you have a ripple like that, for example. Okay. The layers are here like this, and in this ripple we know that we have one steeper side and we have one gently sloping side, and the flow direction is something like that. So, once the river or stream flows in this direction, what it does, it erodes from this side and deposits in this side. So, erosion and deposition goes on this way, and so it happens in this side. So, this part gets eroded and being deposited here, and this process continues like this. So, these are the new depositions continuously going on, and this is exactly what we see here. So, with time, then once this is filled this way, then maybe you have another ripple coming here, and then again you go on depositing continuously over it, and therefore you produce something like this, which is known as ripple migration. So, again it tells you the paleocurrent direction and also the stratigraphic up direction. We see here the ripples again, but here we see them in a different way. So, here you see the traces of the overall bedding planes, and then if we come towards this side, we see that the ripple are disposed like this. So, these are not folds, these are ripples. So, you are seeing them in a cross section. If you observe carefully, you see that here the ripple is asymmetric. The ripple is also asymmetric here, but their asymmetricity is different. Here you see the ripples are symmetric, and all these happened in a very small place. You also see some internal fine layers here. You also see some internal fine layers here, here and here, and they are verging towards this side. The slope of these internal layers are in this direction. You also see some layers here. Interestingly, these are moving or sloping towards this direction. And if you look in this horizon carefully, you will see in this area the internal laminations are sloping towards this side, and if you come here, you will see these internal laminations are sloping this side. The same observation you can make here. They are sloping this way, so sloping this direction, and right above this here they are sloping in the opposite direction. So, let me sketch this area to understand all these observations in a better way. So, I am drawing this line. Okay, I am sketching from the other side, opposite side. something like that. So, I stopped somewhere here and I started from somewhere here, and this middle ripple is this one. Now, internally we see that we have laminations here like that. We also see here in this ripple laminations are like this, and here as well. Now, what is the flow direction? We know from our theory of sedimentology that the steeper side of the ripple is known as lee, and the gentler side is known as stoss. And in that case, flow direction is this way. But here it is exactly opposite. Lee is here, stoss is here, flow direction is in this side. More importantly, if we observe this particular area here, we see that some tiny features have developed here, tiny laminations like this, that we see also here over this, and certainly here. And this tells you the flow is in this direction. So, is it random, or something is wrong here, or what we have understand so far is wrong? The answer is that this is very much possible if we are on a tidal flat, or we are looking at a sequence of a tidal flat where the water comes in one direction and then goes out to another direction, provided you have sea in this side. So, this goes on continuously, and therefore, the asymmetricity of the ripples change, and so the internal laminations within the ripples. So, this particular section, if we consider, the flow was in this direction, and the next segment of the tide, the flow was in this direction, and that results this kind of interesting oppositely verging ripple migrations and internal laminations. This is very important, and if we see this kind of features in cross beddings, then we call them herringbone cross stratification.